Not really an interesting week. We had Fed interest rate decision and interest were cut by 25 basis points. That was, I think, Wednesday or Thursday, so pretty boring leading up to that, and even after that for me. I took DKNG for the first trade of the week. Getting quite hot lately. To downside, I mean, mostly due to rising competition. Now setting a quite nice reverse ABCD-ish range-ish kind of sort of thing. Closing at the bottom yesterday on a bit heightened volume, which I loved. And we have a pretty great fall-off point here below which we do have some wicks and some levels, but mostly clear sky. So I decided to take an entry once we broke down from that. First you see on the 60-minute chart, second on the 5, second on the 15, quite nice, and we got some drop right before the open. So that seemed very, very weak to me. I was like, okay, that's quite nice. Didn't really like this wick, so I waited for the breakdown of that. We retested PDC, set my stop above that, and once we broke down, I entered. Didn't really think it was going to be a big trade, plus we had a very solid support here, initial drop low as well as footing support kind of here, so didn't really want to stretch it. Also daily and 60 weren't the nicest of setups, and I wasn't so keen on this breakdown area either, so I entered half an hour entry, full exit right around here, very nicely dropped, but didn't really want to stretch it as I said, and that was it. I got quite lucky on this one, but I think it was almost perfect execution. Like, I'm not quite sure what I could have done better here. I think the entry had to be here, the stop loss had to be there, exit had to be there as well. Oh yeah, also, so this is where footing support was, and we also had this little wick on the 60-minute as secondary support, so like big drop initial low, but that was kind of the excess, and this is like the mini higher low. Then I had MP, so rising channel slash pennant or whatever you want to call it, breakout, then a fail of that, although a lower volume retracement, but now breaking down from this upward trend line. Quite subjective on that upward trend line, but I like this mini lower high here and the breakdown of that, as well as this level here on the daily, so that was very, very clean in my opinion. That the breakdown was happening, not the setup itself. Then a reverse ABCD sort of thing on the 60-minute chart, also breaking down from here, which is that little initial drop low on the daily. Weekly basically showcasing the same exact thing as the daily, nothing separate that I mean, I do like the shooting star, but nothing super extra that it's adding. 5-minute range quite wide, and I'm not quite liking how we're ranging in the top half of it before we open. A bottom half tightening would have been much, much, much better. That being said, we broke down first minute as we opened. I entered half an hour, didn't really like the distance, and I thought maybe I could add if it comes to that, but this open was just not super great. Also wasn't the biggest fan of the daily, but it was quite neat. I think just a notch better than DKNG. Anyways, half hour, then it created a 3-bar play with a shooting star retesting the level exactly, so I entered yet another half hour, now being in 1 hour full position for a standard trade, and I moved my stop up here, which was my mistake because we were quite volatile, and yes, pre-market low was quite okay, but maybe keeping my stop here would have been better, or half my stop, this position's stop loss here, and this position's stop loss here. So coming up here, I would have gotten stopped out for half an hour, and I still would have had my half hour here. Anyways, I made a mistake and got stopped out of both. And then I re-entered for 1 hour right as we broke this very, very shaky pennant. So 1 minute was definitely subpar here. What I went for is basically the daily 60, the larger time frame bias was still very much so intact, as well as my stop loss. which was approximately the middle of the range, and I showed drop low as we gapped down here. And I thought that we were just holding open price very, very well, so I set my stop up quite high there and entered one full R because I thought that, okay, I think we're gonna hold this range, the middle of it, which is a very common break line. So I set my stop above there, 1 hour entry, and then I let it come down to 62.83, which was the initial peak high here. Very, very nice level. I exited, I think, 50% there. I'm not 100% sure because I haven't written it up. Yeah, unfortunately I haven't. But if I remember correctly, it was 50%, and I left the rest to trail, hopefully reaching lower. 59.20 was my swing target for this trade, kinda, but I wasn't swinging it. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna let it sink however for it wants to. Arvel wasn't so great. I don't know. I think I'm fine with the 50% partial there, so maybe could have done 75%, but I'm a bit shaky there, so I'm gonna say that's fine. Maybe after range, then bounced. After this, I could have taken a partial, like another 50%, so it's 75% total. After we couldn't really continue lower, but yeah. Anyway, BLTR gapping up, and I think this was the day SPY gapped up quite a lot as well on the China. Did I not write it? Anyways, it was like a good China deal outlook, something like that. I don't know. China and USA making peace or whatnot. So we gapped out. I loved the weekly chart. I think it's just beautifully flagging here, continuing this right here very nicely on the daily. Not the tightest. It's basically the same width, but then we get a little gap up candle here that's very tiny, and then another gap up. It's below the all-time high, but it's above this whole mess. So I thought that was quite clean. The 60-minute was definitely shit. I would have loved a bigger pullback. We got a bit of a pullback at the open, but a bit more structure, a bit more clear move, pullback, and then continuation pattern would have been nice. BLTR doesn't like to have like very high volume days unless very active, which is quite rare, and often not on breakout days and such. So not super mad about the 120% ish. Our wall was 220%. Okay, so sorry that it's actually 2 p.m. when I took the screenshot, so that's what I thought. 120 doesn't matter. A bit of a ranger situation on the 5-minute, definitely nothing nice. It's just sort of a trade that I think I had to try just because of the name and the magnitude of the breakout for half an hour. So we fake broke out. I set my stop here below this range, and I just get stopped out after that. I'm not mad. I think it's a good try. I think my stop loss was okay as well, because I thought that we should have just gone after a fake break and break like that, but we didn't, so I'm quite okay with that. And as I rightfully noted here, I didn't check for individual news. I'm not sure if there were any, but that's that. GSIT. So APU news very nicely, like almost quadrupled in one day. Then a drop off, and then a pennant, which is not my favorite. Pennant is a little bit shaky but quite nice. We're tightening in the top half of it, so that's nice. Very nice tightening right in the very end as well, and we're opening at half, then breaking out. Volume wasn't quite nice. I think it was 50% Arvel at the open, and we were just like getting a bit stalled here, and I was like, okay, 50% Arvel, and we're getting stalled, so I'm I think I'm gonna cut it. I don't want to be involved in something like this. I would have loved much higher RVOL, or at least much more momentum that could signal to me that RVOL was going to increase with the breakout. And as soon as I cut it, we entered the second minute, and RVOL did increase to like 200% over the next few minutes. But still, it wasn't like crazy good, and we just reverted. So I think in these scenarios, waiting for the actual breakout, which in my case was 12:20, should be good, given that I have a good entry, a good stop loss, and I should have waited for that, for the volume to kick in, not before that. And after that, seeing that it's only like 200%, and we're struggling near the level, could have taken like a 30, 50, maybe even 75% partial, and then just get stopped out a break even with more volume, of course, holding for longer. But the lack of volume, the drop of pennant, well, it were just good signals that we weren't gonna get that big of a move. Roblox, missed earnings, mixed earnings, gap down, so not quite sure what the details were, but we initially got a really good reaction, fake breaking this entire range and all-time high on the daily. I'm not sure if it was actually all-time high, including outside of regular hours candles, but I very much so like this fake break and then gap down below this little mess, and now we have a window between 125 and 120.80ish, so that's quite nice. But we actually did open below 120.80, and below that we have a very nice window. So I thought, okay, maybe I could take advantage of this. We're quite extended short term, so a bit risky, but I like the initial drop low, then a little bit of consolidation, downtrend consolidation-ish thing, and we broke down from pre-market low, retesting 9, retesting pre-market low. Definitely not the prettiest, but I thought that we could still be good for it. Volume was, or I mean the VP was quite good, price action was quite good, entered half an hour, targeting 115-ish area, right around here. And I took a partial because at 1 minute PBH was holding quite well, so I took a 50% partial there. I only had like 2 shares because of the $5 risk, and accidentally entered due to a hotkey mistake setting my limit order there. So I fumbled that, but I would have exited, I think, at the 9 EMA break, so pretty much at the same exact price. Very small little scrap for a winner, but I think it was a good try for half an hour. An acceptable try, at least. Last one SLDP. So I'm not gonna go over this trade much except for the daily, which I think is the key here, which is that my rollover setups are usually caused by a very large move, then a ranging little top, and reverting that move to like 50% or more, but don't really like to take it when it already reverted a lot, which in SLDP's case the actual breakout was 550, so we basically retraced 100%, but I counted it from 350, so I think that was a mistake on my part, and I should definitely start counting it from the breakout area, not from the start of the move. So yeah, that was a big mistake. So GSIT, I already talked about how I could have traded it better, but then we had BA. So yesterday I had 4.9 billion charge, started delays of one of its jets, first delivery pushed out to 27, earnings reporting a large net loss, and today it had a downgrade. So quite bad news. Yesterday's high volume could have been an indication that something good was gonna go down here. So not really a rollover trade, more so a news range breakdown, a gap out of range breakdown trade. With a very nice level around here that I should be careful about because we opened above it, but below that I think we could have just like sunk. So quite a nice one there. We broke down from that and ranged intraday. Very nice, very clean. nice respective of the edges of the ranges, and we get tight right at the bottom of the range with a mini consolidation here that's getting tighter, holding 9 and breaking down. Easy entry, easy stop loss. What am I targeting? So for some reason I had a level at 203.23, somewhere around here. Oh yeah, it was the top of this little range approximately, and the bottom of this, so not a so robust level, but quite nice I think for a partial this late into a move, because we were quite extended. I would have been trading 30C, but our vol was quite good, 300% near open and near 11 a.m. so very good. VPA was also very clean, larger move on the down move, and then lowering on the consolidation, and then getting spikes again on the breakout or near the breakdown. I think just overall a very solid setup in that way. I think I could have got a 1R easily to what I think would have been a stretch. Why? Daily not the most robust, and within this little mass 60-minute 3rd CCE, already a bit late into the move. Yeah, it's risky. I think 1R is just the right spot for it. So that were the week's ups.